Hi there, my name is Morgan Bell. I am currently a PhD student at the Toronto School of Theology, where I study systematic theology. I am a candidate for ministry in the United Church of Canada, where I've worked in youth ministry and music ministry and congregational ministry. And I graduated from Emmanuel College in the spring of 2020 with my Master of Divinity. So I've been asked to give you a few words of wisdom that I wish that I would have received when I was starting out on my MDiv, so I hope that you find something helpful in what follows. The first thing I wish I had heard is that it is incredibly important that you cultivate your prayer life. Now that seems rather straightforward. It is God's school, after all. We are training and preparing for ministries, but it is easy to put prayer and spiritual practice on the back burner. And it's even easier, I think, to see the rich curriculum that we are offered in Bible and pastoral theology and history and systematics as one more thing that we need to get through in order to graduate. But there are more than that. They're not only ways that we're prepared for ministry, but they're ways that we enter in more deeply to the great tradition of Christianity and avenues in which we are invited to encounter the living God. So I suggest that if you read scripture, if you have some other form of prayer practice that is important to you, and that is a way that you can connect with God and hear the living voice that we worship, I would suggest that you cultivate that and put a lot of attention into that as you make your way through your studies. The second piece of wisdom that I wish that I would have heard, which again sounds rather straightforward, is do the reading. This is one of the ways that instruction is given, and it's easy to think, I don't need to do the reading for next week, or I can skim that, or there's something else that I should probably be doing. There's always going to be excuses, but it's incredibly important that you do the reading. This is a way that you enter more deeply into the material. But again, like the prayer practice, it's a way that you enter more deeply into the Christian tradition, that you hear voices that are radically different from your own, that your own presuppositions are called into question, and you're forced to think through God's self-revelation in Jesus, which is the core of the education that we are given. So do the reading. The last piece of advice is perhaps the most important piece, at least for me, and it's something that I continue to struggle with, and that is to keep it all in perspective. Now, I mean two things by this. On one hand, that is to say that this degree is not your entire life. It's probably not even the most important thing in your life. It is not the sum total of your ministry, and you need to work out for yourself how it fits in your list of priorities. That might change over time, but it is a question that you need to continually ask yourself. But keeping this degree in perspective also means something different, and that is that we are in a 2,000-year-old tradition, far longer if you count our connection with our Jewish siblings. There is no way that we can know all that there is to know what everyone said about every doctrine, to know every part of the Bible on the back of our hand. It can't be done. And another part of that is to say that with this being such a long and rich tradition, a tradition that's gone on far longer than we have been alive and will continue far after our deaths, it's important that we have a proper posture of humility towards it, that we are entering a conversation that is already underway, and before we jump into that conversation ourselves, we have to listen, we have to learn, we have to recognize that we are novices. So before we grab something and say this is it, or we reject something that is far different from what we're used to, we have to learn about it. We have to recognize that we are just newcomers to this long conversation. And so as you join the conversation in your time at Emmanuel College, I wish you all the best, every blessing. I'm keeping you in my prayers, and I look very much forward to meeting you online and in person.